This past year, the Equity and Planters Precision had the opportunity to work together, and then we were in the quest for high management corn and soybeans. We worked together to perform large-scale trials out on growers' farms. I would like to first introduce the people that are going to be presenting you the yield results. So first off is Todd Schumacher, who is agronomy sales out of our Montrose location. Todd was really the pioneer of the idea, wanting to pull together the perfect nutrition recommendations along with the perfect planter pass, and it's a quest for high yield. Randy Blummer, working day to day with Todd Schumacher, who is our location manager out of Montrose, is also going to be presenting. Kyle Dozenbrock, who is the general manager of our Planters Precision business, who now has 3 locations within Montrose, Gaze, Illinois, and also Moweaqua. And then Tanner Clements, who is our Go Smart specialist, working with the Montrose, Stewartson, Galton, and Lovington locations, had a heavy hand in a lot of the data. And Tom Waldoff, our Go Smart manager, helped pull all this data together and worked with Tanner to get the results that we did. So this group was committed to this research. In 2020, they pulled over 935 tissue samples out in the field. And then when you get some fields with corn over your head, and then it's a lot of pollen falling during the hot days, it's a heck of a task, but I think it's going to give us some good information in the end. And then they were working together with 6 interns who were working pretty tough hours, pulling a lot of these tissue samples, taking pictures. And then we also had a state-of-the-art planter along with a state-of-the-art tractor in front of it to make sure that we had a good planter pass. And the information man hours that are going into this project, it's continuing to be ongoing. We're finding more things out each and every day, and then we're able to pull a lot of that information and help make good decisions. Then I just want to say that this team that I just presented earlier are committed to make sure that this research project is a good investment and decision-making tool for growers. The biggest thing that stuck out to me is how this group worked together. So if you pull the Equity, who does an excellent job with seeding recommendations, nutrition recommendations, and also the crop protection side of the business. And then you pull in the Planters Precision side with the nutrient placement, and then also making sure that planter's functional and have a good planter pass. Because it doesn't matter if you recommend the correct seed, if you don't have it at the right depth, singulated, and the right spacing, you're not going to get the most out of your nutrition. And then the Go Smart, the way that those guys help pull all this information together is second to none. The Equity, when we would make recommendations, we were just one part of it. And then Planters Precision as well, they were one part of it. You could make great nutrient recommendations as the Equity, you could make great seed recommendations, and then Planters Precision, they could make great planter recommendations. But then when you put the two together is when you have an excellent combination. You get a synergistic effect. If you put the recommendations from the Equity on the crop protection, the seeding, nutrition, and put that in along with the equipment side of Planters Precision and making sure that we're doing an excellent job through the field, the value goes to 3. In some of our previous meetings together, working with Kyle and his team, this is the picture in the middle of the screen is one of Kyle's first slides. And as you can see, nutrition is the first building block. And then you have emergence, singulation, and spacing. So it makes sense that the two are paired together, and we pair the best nutrition along with emergence, singulation, spacing, and that's when we can help deliver value to the customer. So with the Equity, Planters, and then tying in the Go Smart, we can deliver even more value to the customer. So we can have the best crop protection, we can have the best nutrient recommendations, and then we can have the best seeding recommendations, and we can also have a planter equipped to do the best job. But if we don't have somebody to pull the information together and put it in a nice usable format, then we cannot make decisions moving forward. So Go Smart, adding to Planters and the Equity, almost seems like you add a value of 5. So the synergistic effect between all of the companies just pulls it together, and then we can make better decisions and add more value to the grower and deliver higher yields.
I'm going to take a step back and look at how we got to this point with the Go300 Go100 research planner and what built up to this planner and to this program and the data that we're after. In 2014, we looked back at building a research planner. We wanted to build it similar to how the growers were having problems with spacing, singulation, downforce. So we started out with those issues and we addressed them on a planner. We figured out with good meter control, good downforce control, and good understanding of how the planner performed, we got a lot better performance from our yields. So with that, it's been an ongoing process from the last several seasons. We started out with those, and then we started looking into the liquid side of things. How well does Furrow work? How well does nitrogen on the planter work? As growers were asking us those questions, we want to dive deeper from a research standpoint and figure it out for ourselves. So we had a Kinsey 612 twin row planter. It was a smaller planter, and we had struggles with it. Not be able to get across the amount of acres we wanted to. We were pretty limited to it. We did about 90 to 110 acres a year with it, and most of the plots were 5 to 10 acres at the largest at a time. But it gave us a lot of good information, and it was a great foundation to what led up to the Go300 Go100 research planner, in which here we show a couple pictures of the planner that started the whole big project for us. I'm going to take a few slides here and dive deeper into what we put on this planner to achieve the research that we were after. It is a Harvest International 1631 Series 2 bar, come out of Storm Lake, Iowa. Since we're a dealer for Harvest International, we felt like that would be the planter bar that we wanted to build, so we could build it from ground up. We put the Precision Planting Ready row unit on it and controlled the whole planter through a Gen 3 2020 paired with Field View with Precision Planting. As far as with that, we were able to map and collect all the data from every plot, from population to hybrid to singulation to how we managed our downforce. Our liquid was very important as well, mapping when and our different rates, our different tank mixes, and it really gave us an insight for data to use throughout the research and throughout the summer for tracking how well our planter performance was going. With that, we put the VSET 2 meter on there. We felt like with that meter, we'd have superior singulation to where we wouldn't have very many skips or multiples, and that really helped us out to know that wouldn't be a limitation when we took it to yield. With that, we paired it to the V drive, which is our electric drive motor. Therefore, that was our auto row shut off by row. That gave us our turn compensation, and it also gave us our variable rate aspect of it. So when we wanted to change populations on the go with the prescriptions that the GoSmart team built for us, it made it very easy. We also paired it with Speed Tube. So as we wanted to do research, we wanted to be effective at it as well. Therefore, increasing our speed was pretty important to us, knowing that we can get across more acres quicker, being that we would be stopping quite a bit, filling up with different tank mixes, switching rates on the go, and so forth. Also, a lot of the growers wanted to see how does Speed Tube perform on their farms, so we felt like it was a necessary item to have on the planter as well. Along with that, Delta Force, we felt was absolutely crucial. Being that we were going high speeds, we felt like hydraulic downforce with lift is very important, and how fast it controls our row unit, making sure we have a good, consistent, smooth ride. Because we knew we were going to go into a lot of different tillage types, soil types, because every operation and farm was going to kind of throw us a different task to achieve. So managing our downforce, achieving the good emergence was top of our goal. And we felt like the Delta Force would really help us get through that. We paired it up with some smart firmers on the planter, and with that, we had 8 of them on the planter, and that gave us the in-furrow sensing to know exactly where our moisture line was, know where our soil temperature was, know what our organic matter and CEC levels was. So as most of the growers that we were on, they were able to see what real live data coming in from their fields were, to dive deeper into building prescriptions going forth in the future. With those CEC levels and organic matters, we were able to track different soil types and also to see how well the moisture changed with it. So going forth in the future, I think it's going to really gather us a lot of good information and data that we're going to be able to really utilize well for our prescriptions and recommendations. With that as well, we went with Yetter row cleaners along with the clean sweep control, because we wanted to make sure if there was clods or residue in the way, we moved them out of the way of the row unit so we had a good planter pass. Gauge wheels always riding on good contact to soil, and we knew that there would be a lot of different scenarios thrown our way. So row cleaner was very important to this project as well. Then we dive a step deeper, and this is really what has become the uproar of our Go300 Go100 is the liquid side of things. We paired it with dual V-Apply HD on every row to where we ran our Keaton seed firmers with our Furrow mixes, as well as then we looked at our nitrogen, and we tried two different products. We did the Conceal and the Bandits. Conceal is from Precision Planting, Bandits from 360 Yield Center. We wanted to compare them side by side in the field. That way, if a grower wants to know our recommendation of what product we felt like performed better, we'd have a good, strong recommendation knowing we took it across every acre side by side. And that's what we utilize to really dive deeper with our nitrogen. And it is dual banded on both sides of the row. We went an inch to an inch and a quarter deep, 3 inches off to the left and off to the right. The dual V-Apply HD is very similar to like our V-Drive. That is our auto row shut off by row for our liquid. That is our turn compensation and our variable rate. So as the Go Smart built us prescriptions, we didn't have to get out of the cab to change orifices or anything. It was pre-built in there to where we could change our rates on the go, and it made it very seamless to where it really sped up our process of getting this research and getting it in the ground properly. Next, we move on to the closing system. Furrow Force is a new product out from Precision Planting, and we felt like it was necessary for us to dive deeper and look at closing the furrow. We know we got the seed in the proper furrow with the proper moisture, with zero compaction. Now we want to take a step and say, how do we close the furrow? Yetter poly twister spikes have been one of our best closing wheels around here, because we can do a lot of things with it. We can plant corn and soybeans with it. We can plant high speeds. We can plant in no-till and conventional tillage. But with that being said, we felt like the Furrow Force was going to put it up to a challenge. So we wanted to see it side by side. The Furrow Force gave us a lot of insight of how well we can close the furrow in the tough conditions. We decided to put it on the center 8 rows, which we didn't go alpha on the left wing or the right wing because we wanted to put it in the worst environment. Knowing that we were going to have a bulk fill planter with a lot of liquid, we knew there was going to be a lot of compaction along with the tractor and the liquid tanks on it as well. Therefore, we felt like if Furrow Force was going to give us a true advantage in those tough conditions, we could say that was a success for that product. On the liquid side, we did pair up 2 250-gallon tanks mounted on the tongue in front of the bulk fill. That was set up for our nitrogen. And we also had 2 tanks, 1 on each wing, each 150-gallon, to where that's what we put our in-furrow mixes as. As we roll into the tractor, we use the John Deere 8400R series paired up with RTK guidance because we wanted to have that perfect pass and be able to make it easier for the grower to come back if he chose a side dress or apply fungicide or anything of that nature. We did pair it up with 360 Yield Center tanks. There are 2 350-gallon tanks, 1 on each side, 700 gallons total, and we lined and plumbed that up with our 500 gallons in front of the bulk fill. Therefore, it made it nice capacity to be able to hold that amount of product on nitrogen, because that's what most of the growers struggle with. When they go to liquid, it's the logistics that they struggle with. Where do we mount tanks? How many tanks can we have on the tractor and on the planter? How many gallons can we hold? In between 360 and Planter's Precision, we felt like this was a good setup, and we custom built some of our own brackets for the harvest bar to hold all those tanks. And with that, we made filling very easy from both the front of the planter and the rear of the planter as far as the tractor goes as well. So it made it easy for us pulling in and out of the fields to fill up, get a lot of acres done, and carry a lot of capacity. With that being said, we felt like we built what we believe is a great research planter to where we had very limited factors as far as maintaining our downforce, to spacing, to singulation, along with proper liquid control, whereas we know every row was consistent applied liquid, and we also had the tractor to be able to get us down the field and get done effectively.
I wanted to go through a couple slides and explain what goes into GoSmart Analytics. First of all, we get a lot of information from different brands of monitors. We're collecting data from planting to harvest, in-season applications of liquid products, dry. So that information is all fed into AgVance. We use AgVance as our source of data collection, and all that data is going into the analytics system. But our true knowledge to the system is what comes through with equity, bringing in their knowledge with crop protection and nutrient information, along with what the grower and Planter's Precision add to the mix. So the equity grower and planters is the base, the building block of all the information. So they're feeding their information, their knowledge into the system along with the data that we're collecting out in the field. So all of those combined things come together into the analytics system. So a couple of examples I have are how a field was set up. So this is one of the fields we planted with the research planter. The left image is how the plot was laid out. So that was done ahead of time with the salesperson. So we designed the plot to have replicated strips in the field. And then the image to the right is the actual yield data. So this particular field had a lot of water damage. So we're able to clip out the water damage and get just the actual good yielding parts of the field so we could do a good analysis on the data. This next image is another field where we had different trials in the field set up with two different hybrids. So as you can see in this field, there's a lot going on with the liquid side of the planter and also the hybrid selection. So there's a lot of different blocks out there that we can analyze individually and come up with a very replicated analysis of this field with how the liquid performed and how the liquid performed on different hybrids. As you can see with these couple examples, there's a lot of different ways that we can pull in information, crunch the numbers, and get good information back out to the grower and to the salespeople.
I have had the privilege in the last 30 years to be working with many progressive growers on pushing yield to the max, therefore culminating into what we have here now, the Go300 Go100 Research Planter Project. Our focus for this year has been for corn, soybeans, and wheat on a large scale. We are experimenting with many different product mixes. With the product mixes, you also have to know what rates, what is going to be compatible. Then we want to find out, is there a return on investment for these? Also, once you start getting into these larger mixes, what is the logistics of getting it to the planter and getting it to go through the planter in a timely basis? Next, we wanted to figure out, is it the nutrient or is it the placement of the nutrient? Will you get a better return for your investment in a 2x2 band compared to broadcasting over the whole field? So with this, in the past years, we've noticed that zinc, manganese, and boron have been the most responsive and deficient micronutrients that we have seen in our tissue samples. Okay, our high management trials for 2020, there was 18 different fields in 5 different counties. We've had 12 decalb hybrids, 12 different treatments. There are variable rate planted. We had several different mixes of the liquid products. All corn row spacing was 30 inches. The soybean trials were 15 inches, and the wheat trials are 15 inches. All fields have had fungicide applied. As you can see, the scope of our trials encompasses a large area. It is at least 30 miles long and 30 miles wide. So therefore you have many different soil fertility and soil types in this trial. Okay, for the 2020 trial mixtures, what you're going to see is a LP2, which stands for Liquid Products 2, which is 2 ingredients, which is 32 plus ATS. LP4, which would be 4 ingredients, 32 ATS, humic, and biosweet, our sugar. Then we move into the LP7, which is the 32 plus ATS, humic, biosweet, and another 3 micros. And then the LP10, which is a 32% plus ATS, humic, biosweet, and 6 micros. And also you'll see an IFC, which stands for our in-furrow corn mix. The one thing to look into is rates, not only products. So how we got to these rates, when we first started this project, we were starting out with, say, 10 gallon of 32 and a quart of micronutrients. So during that trial, we doubled that rate, which then the double rate was 20 gallon of 32%, which then was a half gallon of micronutrients. So when we moved into like the LP10, we are actually getting up to where we're putting a gallon of micros into that mix. So as you can see, our rates have evolved over time. So we will continue to fine tune these mixtures to find out which one is the best return on investment. The one thing that we learned very early on is the product quality and mixing order matter. You will definitely want to do a jar test before you begin, and also mark the date when you made the jar test. That way you know how long it will stay compatible in the mix. So before we move on to the next slide, be sure to remember product quality and mixing order do matter tremendously. The one thing we noticed from the beginning, as the plants come out of the ground, you will see a visual difference. Both sides of this slide here have equal amounts of N, and it's a very high fertility field. But simply by placing the nutrients in a 2x2 band next to the row, you will definitely see a visual difference. The one thing we have seen is water greatly affects our trials. But even though on this particular trial, our larger mix did not yield the most, but it was also placed into the wettest part of the field. But even the grower had mentioned, look how well it maintained yield through the low area. He said normally that part of the field never even comes close to the rest of it. So it's more about bringing up the yield on all the field rather than just certain different spots.
I work closely with sellers in my territory to bring ag technology to the farm gate and provide data analytics for them. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the information that we pulled from our large-scale research. So in this slide, I'm going to draw your attention to the early planting and the late planting. While we did have some acres that fall into that later planting date and the averages were less than the early planting, look at the yield range. Even though we were late, we still pulled a trial average on one field for 264 bushel an acre. So right there just goes to show you don't give up on your crop, even if it's necessarily what we would consider a later planting date. As Kyle mentioned earlier, we are able to place nutrients on both sides of the row, and that is what I might refer to as 2x2. So when you look at this data, we have the liquid product mixes that Todd had mentioned, and we pulled all that information in to make this slide. So we have the acreage amounts on there to show you how many acres that we were able to cover with these different product mixes. So when we came to just comparing in furrow across the liquid product mixes, we saw an advantage of 6 bushel on the LP2, little over 9 bushel on the LP4, and a little over 9 bushel on the LP7. You will see dollar amounts on the next couple of slides that I'm going to talk about. Those dollar amounts use $4 corn, and that is looking at the ROI, taking out the cost of the products. So when we added in furrow to our LP2, we saw a $9.97 ROI. When we added in furrow to our LP4, we saw a $25 increase of ROI. And when we added in furrow to our LP7, we saw a $25 increase in ROI. So this is the average of all of the trials, and we decided to pull out the 4 trials that we had the most acreage with, since we considered that's what most individuals will probably run. So the column on your left is the overall average of our what we would consider a check yield. When we added LP4 and moved that fertility from a pre-plant situation to on the planter, we gained a little over 11 bushels with a positive ROI of $14.82 an acre. When we added in furrow to that LP4, we increased yield to 20 bushel and showed a positive ROI of $40.19 an acre. When we look at our LP7 trial, we added 18 bushel and added $20.66 of a positive ROI per acre. When we added in furrow to that LP7, we had a positive bushel increase of roughly 27.75 bushel an acre and showed a positive ROI of $46.27 per acre. The next 2 fields will be data from strip trials set up like this one seen previously that Tom had showed that is replicated across the whole entire field. These fields look at moving some of that nitrogen out of a pre-plant situation and moving it to a planter. So going back to another slide that you've seen previously, this is what we look at when we are taking the data analytics into account to be able to provide clean quality data. So that field, we had pre-plant LP2 that was sprayed and we compared it to LP4 that was applied with the planter. We showed a 9.95 bushel per acre increase and a positive ROI of $24.80 per acre. This is another field that we were able to strip trial. We were able to move that, increasing it 14.3 bushel with 20 gallons of LP7, which resulted in a positive ROI of $27.19 an acre. We added in furrow to that 20 gallon mix, resulting in 18 bushel increase and a positive ROI of $31.33 an acre. We then moved LP7 to a 25 gallon rate per acre application, and that resulted in a 13.5 bushel per acre advantage with a $16.49 positive ROI. Then we added in furrow to that 25 gallon LP7 mixture, which resulted in a positive 18.8 bushel with a positive ROI of $21.03 per acre. Not only did we see a yield increase, but as you can see in the photo, there is a great visual difference to the line between pre-plant nitrogen and fertility applied with the planter.
Now we'd like to go through the tissue sample spreadsheet. In this spreadsheet, we have a lot of data where we can compare any nutrient that we wish. The one thing that stands out in this particular tissue sample is the manganese. The manganese in this particular trial was the highest of any other trial. We don't know if it's simply because of soil type or is there something else going on. That is something we're going to research in the future. This particular field was one of the lowest soil test levels that we had. As you can see, pH was okay, phosphorus of 41, K of 98, which is extremely low. We went back in and rescued it with a KTS Y drop system. As you can see, we sampled this 5 different times during the growing season. In this particular field, we knew the K levels were low, so we had planned to come in as a Y drop system to see if we can increase the K in the plants by Y dropping some additional K. We was able to raise the average K from a 1.05 to a 1.45 and also increasing the yield by 10 bushel to the acre. Now in this particular trial, we want to point out the boron part of it. LP4 does not have boron in that mix, whereas the LP7 does. So if we can take the average of the boron in the LP4 at a 7.5, we was able to increase that to an 11.6 with the additional boron in the LP7. Now here we'd like to talk about the nitrogen use efficiency. Here we're comparing the early planted trials to the late planted trials. As you can see, there was more nitrogen needed per bushel for the late planted trials compared to the early planted. The one thing you want to remember, just because you have the best nitrogen use efficiency doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the highest yield. Now as we look in the yields by county, one thing we want to remember, the Jasper County only had one field with 48 acres and Coles County had 62 acres worth. Much more acres than the Cumberland, Effingham, and Shelby. But the one thing you can remember, in the Cumberland County, we were still able to hit a 277 bushel average in the field. Effingham County, we was able to do a 265 and Shelby a 269. So within those trials, there is definitely opportunity in every county to have high yield.
Although this research planner, the Go300 100 research planner, was designed to be predominantly for liquid products, understanding rates, tank mixes, application, and placement, we felt like it was a great opportunity to explore some other innovative products that growers have a demand and questions for. One of the big questions we have from a lot of growers is, all the different closing tails and systems out there with different wheels and configurations. Precision Planting has came out with a new product they call Furrow Force. We felt like this was an awesome opportunity to put it on the planter on 8 rows. Considering the planter would be going across a lot of different types of farm practices, from no-till to minimal till to conventional tillage, also 5 different counties. Therefore, we knew we'd be going across multiple different soil types. So we wanted to dive a little deeper into knowing exactly how well it handles itself in those different environments. And another important thing to understand is we put this closing system on the center 8 rows, like I mentioned earlier. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to understand, with that amount of weight on the planter and tractor with tanks, those are going to be our most stressful rows. We want them to have good emergence just like the outside wings. Therefore, we felt like if it gave us advantage in the center 8 rows, we know we could definitely see the advantage to the outside. So to dive a little deeper into Furrow Force, we understand a properly closed furrow has no air pockets, mellow path, and retains soil moisture. With that being said, it's hard to achieve that with just a 1-stage closing system. Therefore, Precision Planting built a 2-stage closing system where the front wheels actually do the fracturing in the soil. That is the first stage that helps close that trench and close that furrow. And then also coming back with the firming wheel behind it to firm over that to make sure we don't have any air pockets and make sure we have no slotting at all. With this particular system, we ran it automatically controlled. So it does have a sensor on every row, understanding the amount of downforce being applied to it, very similar to where we run our delta force, knowing if we got too much or too less, the air will automatically apply to the bag to add more force to the system. That's why that sensor is so important to us. Also, with that, we can adjust our depth with the T-handle. So as we plant from corn to soybeans, we change our depth typically dramatically. Corn we plant 1.5 to 2.5. Soybeans might be, from 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. So closing that furrow is a little different from corn to beans. So adjusting our depth as we do that with our crop, we also want to do that with our closing system as well. Here you can see a picture of what Furrow Force looks like mounted, and this is for what it would be on a John Deere row unit as well. The gray row unit would be the same, it would just be powder coated gray. So as we look into some of the plot data that we've seen from it, up at the top you can see there's an estimated cost, and that's putting in auto Furrow Force with labor figured in roughly. And as we go down to the left-hand side, you see the acres. We wanted to break that down to what it would cost per acre for a grower that farms with 500 acres, 1,000 acres, 1,500, all the way down to 2,500. We wanted to look to see where our ROI was at with this product. And understanding how we got this data was with a pogo stick. We do that with Precision Planting's app with pogo. What we understand is emergence. And we did 21,000 plants, 10,500 of each with Furrow Force, and then 10,500 with Yetter poly spikes. It was a total of 210 runs and 100 plants in each run. So it took a lot of time to do out in the field, but we're understanding that. Can we help the emergence in the center rows where we have our most compaction, our worst environment? As you can tell from this chart, that for 500 acre grower, it doesn't have that great of ROI on the first year. However, mostly of those growers would typically have a 12-row planter instead of a 16-row. So we want to keep that in mindset too. But as the farther we move down with the acres, the better the return on investment it has. 3.4 bushel yield advantage, I think, is pretty great for a closing system, comparing Yetter poly spikes, which is a highly sold product throughout the whole industry. and understanding that we put it in the worst rows. And also, with that being said, we can run it in manual setting, and we can also run it in just a sensing setting, but we did feel like we wanted to go with the automatic to fully get the true advantage from furrow force. And we also want to take in consideration that a closing system is something on a planter that doesn't get changed very often and doesn't really wear out, unlike disc openers and bushings and parallel arms. Therefore, as you can see in the chart, with 2,000 acres or more, we have a first-year ROI on this product. But as we go with less acres, it is a multiple-year product to get your full ROI. However, we do want to understand that most growers got to match the acres per row to their own operation to figure this out. With that being said, we do firmly believe that furrow force drives a great emergence factor. Therefore, we know we can increase bushels at the end of the day.
We learned a lot this year as we start adding products to be able to get them mixed and get them to the field efficiently and on a timely manner. As farmers start to grow, and I challenge a lot of locations, we've learned a lot as equity themselves of how to be able to handle these products and be efficient in the matter of getting to the farm on time and not to slow the farmers down. It becomes a logistic challenge, but I think we learned a lot as we go. We've really learned a lot to make that challenge or that transition into handling more products on a timely fashion to be able to deliver on time. So I think the research planner for his manager's side of roles, working with Kevin Schumacher and things at the branch has helped us learn how to handle the products and be able to get them to the farm gate and get them on a timely fashion and not slow things down. And as we add more products and as they go along with more products, it does become a challenge, and I think we're heading in the right direction as a company to be able to offer that to our growers and our salesmen to know that it's going to get done. So as these challenges come forth, the company has learned where to invest in rolling stock and continue to invest in rolling stock and infrastructure to meet our challenges as the future of planting, I think, is putting 2x2 liquid on a planter and help with that challenge to see that we get it done and get to the farmer gate at the right time, right product, and good return on investments and learn. I think we're heading in the right direction. So.
We mentioned earlier that soybeans was going to be part of our research. With the challenges that we had this year, we was only able to get one trial out, which it did show some positive results, but we felt not to dwell on it too much. But next year we plan on having more soybean trials out, so we will see what those mixes do for us then. And we plan on fine-tuning the return on investment of the nitrogen in the in-furrow mixes. You know, which nutrients are the best to have in there and what quantities do you want them. We also plan on adding Xyway fungicide to the in-furrow or possibly 2x2 on some of the corn mixes to see if that can do some added benefit. We will continue to learn from the tissue samples as there is a lot of data there. We also want to continue to monitor the planter performance as technology changes. We do have 120 acres of wheat trials which was planted this fall, which we'll be looking into next year at harvest. So several takeaways we'd like to have. The furrow force did deliver a better emergence on the toughest part of the planter. The banded fertility applied with the planter does increase yield, but does not eliminate all other limiting factors. Water is a very major factor in every trial. The banded fertility applied with the planter did create a return on investment. And there is a synergistic effect with the banded fertility, both sides of the row, along with the equities in furrow mixture. The lowest nitrogen to use ratio does not always deliver the highest yield or the best return on investment. Some other key takeaways: the micronutrient return on investment is yet to be defined, whether it be the type of micronutrient or the rate. Compatibility of the liquid products can be an issue. Absolutely jar test every mix. Our team of Go Smart specialists can read and analyze data from most any data sources. Remember, tissue testing alone is not a silver bullet for yield. It is just a guide. Zinc, manganese, and boron have been shown in the last 5 years of 2,500 samples as being the most deficient or responsive micronutrients. Okay, with that, we would like to thank all the growers who have helped us get to this point. Without your help, our research would not be possible. We are excited to see where we can take yields together into the future. Thank you.
As you can see, the team has put a lot of dedication and time into this project, and this group is second to none. There's a lot of talent on this team. They put forth a lot of effort, and we owe them a lot of gratitude for the work that they put into this investment. I want to thank Todd, I want to thank Tanner, Randy, Kyle, Tom, and the teams that they work with. I know they didn't do it all themselves, but they led the project. They did a great job with it, and it's exciting to see where this will go into the future. I think it's going to continue to build, and it's going to be an excellent investment moving into the future, and there is no doubt as a company that in our minds we're going to add value to the growers' operations. So with that being said, and the growers' interest in more products, liquid products, adding to the planters, we have developed a program called Planters Coin, and it's the synergistic effect between the equity and Planters Precision. We feel the two businesses go hand in hand. We want to reward growers for investing in us, and then we're going to reward them with Planters Coin. Planters Coin is able to be used at any Planters Precision location, and then you can use that for any products purchased through their business. As equity and Planters Precision, another thing that we're excited about is Innovation Acre 2021. We do have a date nailed down, which is August 19th of 2021. Innovation Acre is going to be taking place of our new corporate office in the old Mid-America facility. So we're going to have corn and soybean demonstrations. We're going to have plots that we're going to be able to evaluate different products, corn and soybean hybrids varieties. We're also going to look at what Planters Precision can bring to the table as well. There's a right way to plant corn, there's a wrong way to plant corn and soybeans. And we're going to look at that from a spacing, depth, just a multitude of different things that we can look at from a Planters Precision aspect. We're also going to look at high management with corn and soybeans. We're going to continue to expand our knowledge and try to keep driving that forward and keep driving yields. And we're going to keep pushing for 300 bushel corn and 100 bushel soybeans.